Okay. Good morning, class. Today we are going to be dictating your tests only. Sorry, we had some technical difficulties. So we got the computer back and running, and so this is only going to be your tests, okay? So we have proper names. Mr. Green, Christmas Eve, Dallas, First, California, French Quarter, Cynthia Turner, Ford Explorer, Camaro, and First Street. And it'll start in the middle. I kind of enlarged it. And so this will be 160, number 1 test. You all make sure you access the speed building for 5 minutes, you all. How long have you practiced law?
I've been licensed since 1980.
It's my understanding, Mr. Green, that you witnessed an accident on Christmas Eve in 1994. Do you recall that?
Yes, that was in Dallas.
Do you recall about what time of day or night the accident happened?
Best of my recollection, it was afternoon, somewhere around 1:30.
But it was in the daytime?
Yes.
Do you recall where the accident happened?
I could not tell you the names of the streets. I believe it was near First and a street that crossed First.
Does California and First sound familiar?
That sounds familiar.
Were you driving or riding in an automobile?
I was driving.
Do you recall what street you were on?
I was on the street that crossed First.
So you would have been on California Street.
Correct, if that's the name of the street.
Do you remember which direction you were traveling in?
I was traveling towards the French Quarter.
Do you remember what the weather was like that day?
No, not specifics. I realized that there was not precipitation.
To the best of your recollection, were the roads wet or dry?
They were dry.
Do you remember how many lanes of traffic or lanes of travel there are on California Street where you were?
I'm real confused about the streets in Dallas, whether they are 1 or 2 lanes approximately. I remember being in 1 lane. However, it seems to me like it could have been marked for 2, or it could have been marked available for 2 lanes.
Was anyone in the car with you?
Yes.
Who was that?
Her name is Cynthia Turner.
Are you related to Miss Turner?
No, I'm not.
Was it her car you were driving?
Again, I'm confused whether it was my Ford Explorer or her automobile. Something tells me it was my truck we were in.
Was there a traffic control device at that intersection?
Yes, there was.
What type of device was it?
It was a stoplight.
Before the accident happened, were you traveling or were you stopped just before the accident happened?
Well, we had stopped. I had stopped second in line at the signal. There was an auto ahead of me, and then the signal turned green. I started to move forward, then the accident occurred.
Was your car involved in the accident?
No, it was not.
You said there was 1 automobile in front of you.
Yes.
Was that automobile involved in the accident?
Yes, it was.
Do you remember what kind of automobile that was or what color it was?
I think it was a green automobile.
Do you remember how many people were in that car?
1 person.
Just the driver?
Just the driver. Right.
Now, you said you had been stopped for the red light just prior to the accident.
That's correct.
Do you remember how long you had been stopped?
I certainly don't.
And you are certain that the signal turned green before the automobile in front of you started to move?
Yes.
Do you recall the other vehicle that was involved in the accident?
I want to say it was a blue Camaro. I think it was a blue car. I want to say Camaro, but I don't know.
Do you remember how many people were in that car?
1 person.
That would be, again, just the driver.
Correct.
Do you remember which part of the vehicle collided with the Camaro and the other car you believe was green?
The front end of the green car impacted the front end of the blue automobile.
Therefore, they more or less impacted front to front.
It wasn't nose to nose. One of them had to hit the side of the other one, but I don't remember which one specifically hit the side.
Now, the Camaro that you saw that you believe was the blue Camaro, what street was it traveling?
On First, I believe.
If you remember, do you know which direction it was going in?
It was coming from our left.
Going to your right.
Going to my right, that's correct. It seems to me that it was a one-way at that point. At that particular intersection, First was a one-way going to my right.
Do you recall what the intersection looked like where the accident happened?
There were some buildings on the sides. There was a median in the middle, and then the other side of the median was the traffic going to the left on First.
Therefore, it would have been First Street that had the median.
Correct. California didn't have a median. I remember that.
To your knowledge, were there any other witnesses to this accident?
Well, there were people in the cars behind me.
Okay. And so you have proper names on your 160 number 2 Q&A. Ms. Hayes, Susan Hayes, Idaho, Kenner, Louisiana, Honduras, Doberman, Blackie, and Dr. Oliver. And this starts in the middle. Oh, no, I'm sorry, in the very beginning, you all. So this is going to be 160 number 1 for 5 minutes, you all. Ms. Hayes, we are here to take your deposition today. Have you ever given a deposition before, ma'am?
No, I've never done this before. I did it one time, but they didn't have the young man with the machine taking everything down. I basically talked to someone on the phone and they recorded it.
That must have been a sworn statement. Did they essentially ask you to tell what happened and they told you they were recording it?
That's correct. That's exactly what they did.
That's a little bit different from this. As you said, the main difference is that we do have a court reporter taking down everything that we say here today.
Okay, I understand.
These reporters are usually pretty good and accurate. For that reason, I would advise you to waive your right to read and sign at the end of the deposition. However, that's something that your own attorney will discuss with you.
We already talked about that, and I'm going to then surrender my right to read and sign the deposition. I trust the young gentleman.
Excellent. Ms. Hayes, I need to get you to state your complete name and address for the record, please.
Susan Hayes. There is no E in my last name. I live at 342 Idaho in Kenner, Louisiana.
How long have you resided there at that address, ma'am?
I lived there a long period. I moved here from Honduras 15 or 20 years ago. Now I have to live in a trailer on the property because I got the flooding, but I still reside at that address, and that is where I get my mail delivered to.
And do you own or rent that property, ma'am?
I own that property. That house is completely paid off. Not too many people can say that, huh?
That's true. I know I certainly can't say it myself. My understanding is that your deposition is about a dog bite that you incurred while sitting on your front porch. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct. You can notice my foot right there. That hound bit me right there on my ankle. That hound clamped down and bit me right there.
What was the situation as far as the animal is concerned? Did the animal come up on the porch of its own accord? Exactly what happened on that afternoon?
The man from across the avenue was walking this Doberman dog that he has. It's a big black and brown canine with ears that stick up in the air. I don't like that animal. Nobody in the neighborhood likes the animal. The dog barks all night and keeps us awake all night. It's a nasty old animal.
I take it you don't like the dog. What happened with the animal on the afternoon of the accident or incident we're here about today, ma'am?
The gentleman was walking his dog, the Doberman. He came by my residence. My little cat, little Blackie, was sitting there on the front steps. That cat didn't do nothing to that animal. That dog came up to my little cat and started biting her. Just started growling and biting my little kitten. I got up and went over there and pulled that dog off my kitten, and that mongrel bit me on the ankle. See, you can see where the dog bit my ankle. Nasty animal.
Ma'am, did the kitten do anything to provoke the dog's biting it?
What do you mean provoke? The kitten was sitting there on its own front porch minding its own business. The dog just came up and started biting it.
What kind of treatment have you obtained for your ankle?
It was necessary to have stitches to close the wound. The animal bit me terrible.
What physician did you go to for that? Was that your family physician that you saw for that?
Yes, it was Dr. Oliver, who is my family doctor. That's correct.
Did you have other treatment than the stitches for your ankle, ma'am?
No, I had no other treatment. However, I go to a head doctor because I can't sit on my porch anymore and I can't go for a walk in my neighborhood anymore. That dog has really messed me up. That dog has ruined my whole life.
When you say a head doctor, what exactly do you mean? Do you mean a psychologist? Do you mean a psychiatrist?
It's a psychologist. It's for the head, a doctor for the head. He keeps telling me to just go ahead and go outside and relax on the porch or go walking, but I can't do it anymore. That animal has really messed me up terribly.
And is that same Doberman still in your neighborhood?
No, the man, he moved.
Okay, and we'll get ready for your 140s. So 140 number 1, you have Mr. Walker, Watson Press, Watson, Mr. Benson, and March, you all. And it starts at in the middle. This will be 140 number 1 for 5 minutes. Mr. Walker, how long have you been employed by Watson Press?
For 23 years.
What kind of work do you do?
Assembly and service work.
Did you do the same type of work before you joined Watson?
More or less.
How many years have you had in the assembly and service of punch presses?
About 30 years.
Did you receive formal training of some kind for the work that you do?
No, I started off on the assembly line.
So the training you received with Watson has been in the nature of on-the-job training. Is that correct?
That's right.
Who is your immediate boss or supervisor?
As of now?
Yes.
Mr. Benson.
How long has he been your boss?
About 4 years now.
Now, as part of your work, you inspect certain presses in the field. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What is the other part of your work?
I assemble certain units that we use on the press.
Mr. Walker, is the service work that you do in the nature of repair work as the calls come in, or are they regular maintenance calls?
I don't get that question.
Do you do regular maintenance work such as once a month?
Do you mean to call on a customer all the time?
Yes.
No, sir.
The only time you go out is when a call comes in from a customer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Are you familiar with the press involved in this lawsuit?
Yes, I am.
Did you participate in the assembly of that press?
No, I didn't.
Did you participate in the sale of it?
No, I didn't.
Your first contact with this press was in the nature of a service call. Is that correct?
That's correct.
At any time, Mr. Walker, did you give anybody a statement or an interview that was written out as to what you know about this press?
Not that I recall.
Did you ever write anything out in longhand to give to your boss about this press?
No, I didn't.
Were you ever interviewed by anyone in the presence of a court reporter as to what you know about this case?
No, I was not.
When was the first call that you made to service this press?
It was in March of last year.
Now, are you recalling that from memory as opposed to looking at something?
There is something that made me remember that particular press.
What made you remember that particular press at that particular time?
It is the only press in my memory that we painted red and gray.
How did you receive the order to go out to that location?
Through the office.
Did Mr. Benson tell you orally, or did he give you something in writing to go out there?
I usually get a bill of lading.
Is this bill of lading typed up as opposed to being handwritten?
That I don't remember.
What did the bill of lading say?
Go out and check a press.
Did it say anything more than that?
No, that's all.
Did it say what was wrong?
Not that I recall.
Did Mr. Benson talk to you about the complaint?
He did mention that the customer had complained about the press and that I should check it out. That's all.
Did he say anything about the nature of the complaint?
He just said the press repeated.
When you receive these assignments, are you usually told about the problem?
Yes.
Did you ever have the experience of checking on a press that repeated?
I can't recall any.
Did you take any particular tools that you would not ordinarily take on a service call?
No, I did not.
Do you have a kit or a toolbox that goes with you?
Yes.
Are these tools provided by Watson Press?
No, most of them are mine.
What else can you recall that Mr. Benson told you about this particular assignment?
That's all I remember.
Had you ever seen that press before that time?
Only when it was being put together in the plant.
And that's just because of the paint job.
That's right. That's what struck me as being odd.
Did you examine the? Okay, and so we have your second. It's a continuation, you all. So you have March, Hutchinson Company, Hutchinson, and Mr. Benson. And this will be 140 number 2, and it does start in the middle, you all, for 5 minutes. Sometime in March of last year, you did visit the Hutchinson Company location.
I did.
Were you alone, or was somebody with you?
I was alone.
With whom did you talk relative to this press?
I don't remember.
Do you recall talking to somebody?
Yes.
Do you recall if the person was somebody from the office or somebody from the factory?
I don't recall.
Can you recall what that person told you?
He told me that the press repeated.
Did he say how many times it repeated?
No, he did not.
Did he give you any indication of why he thought it repeated?
No, he did not.
Did you examine the press that day?
I did.
Did it appear that the press was in service that day, or was it out of service?
Well, somebody was running the press when I came in.
How long did your inspection last on that particular day?
About an hour.
What did you check first?
I turned the machine on and checked it for operation. I tried to make it repeat, but it couldn't make it repeat.
Other than running the machine, did you take it apart?
I didn't touch anything on the press. I just gave it a visual inspection.
Did you run a part through the press?
No.
Was the press equipped at that time to run material and parts?
There was a die in the press.
What was the material that was being put through the die?
That I don't recall.
So you merely touched the press to run it as opposed to taking it apart.
That's right.
Have you ever had a customer complain about a press repeating, and upon examination and testing of the press, you did not find any evidence of repeating?
I don't recall.
Did you form any opinion relative to the alleged malfunction of this press?
I could not.
Did you so inform the people at Hutchinson?
I sure did.
Did you tell them the day you were there?
The day I was there, I told the party that was with me and I showed it to him. I could not make it repeat.
Did you file any kind of a written report as to what you did that day?
No.
Did you tell Mr. Benson about it though?
I did.
Were you called out again to examine this press?
I was.
When was the next time?
A month later.
Did you receive a bill of lading at that time?
I did.
What did it say?
It said to inspect the press.
Did you talk to Mr. Benson again?
Yes.
What did he say?
He told me to go out and check the press again.
Did he tell you why?
He said the customer was complaining that the press was repeating.
How long did your second inspection last?
About as long as the first one.
What did you do the second time?
I checked the press over again. I also ran it and tried to make it repeat, but I couldn't.
Is there any special test that can be employed to determine if the press is repeating?
Not that I know of.
So in your experience, the only way to determine it is to actually run the press.
That's right.
Now, did you obtain any information the first time you were out there from anybody who actually saw the press repeat?
No, I didn't.
Did the man you were with the first time tell you when and how the press repeated?
No, he didn't.
Did you take it apart the second time?
I didn't touch it.
Was your second inspection similar to your first inspection?
It was the same.
Did you tell the man who was with you the results of your inspection?
I did. He was right with me all the time.
Was it the same man as the first time?
That I don't recall.
After your first inspection, did you make any recommendations regarding the press?
No, I didn't.
Did you make any suggestions or recommendations after your second inspection?
No, I didn't.
Did you form any opinion in your own mind as to why the customer was complaining about the press? Okay, you all. So that concludes your test, you all. They were very fair, so hopefully you all get one. Have a great day, you all.